Like, well, I mean, if she respects you, obviously you don't have to beat her. On the other hand, if she doesn't, I mean, you picked the wrong woman, and I guess you're gonna have to do what you, I mean, it was just horrific. Horrific.
Yeah.
And so, is there an audience for that in the right wing? I mean, I say kind of half sarcastically.
Mr. I want to be fair and charitable, Cenk Uygur here is anything but fair and charitable in this clip where he tries to paint Andrew Klavan as a domestic abuser, or that he's advocating for domestic abuse. Cenk doesn't know if he wants to be the fair and reasonable lefty that's trying to outreach to MAGA, or if he's trying to be his typical stupid lefty self. Pick a lane, Cenk, but let's see how this goes down.
Me, who loves women and wants to have a wonderful life with a wonderful woman and respect her and never raise a hard hand against her, I never raise my voice to my wife because I'm so enamored of her. You have to find that woman. You have to find a woman who doesn't need to be smacked around in order to behave in a civilized way. And that's the way you do it. You avoid the women who don't respect you. If a woman respects her husband, obviously her husband should treat her like the queen of the world. But if a woman hits her husband, he should never hit her back, but he will.
So if a woman doesn't respect her husband, is that a green light to beat her? Because that's how it kind of came across. Like, yeah. I don't think that's what he meant. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But like,
I'm not, no.
Okay, yeah, like, no, first of all, let me just clear this up. I don't buy into the argument that a woman can hit a man and that a man, like, men can never hit a woman, but a woman can hit a man. I don't agree with that. I don't think anyone should hit anybody. I don't think physical violence is ever okay in any circumstance, and I don't think there's ever a justification for it, period. The way he makes that argument, though, makes it appear as though he's trying to provide cover for instances in which a man beats his wife. That's how it's coming across.
So he put in plenty of caveats, so I understand what Anna's saying. And we made sure to put one of them in there for you about, hey, I love my wife and I don't beat her and etc. Right? And he said you shouldn't, and if a man does it, they should be arrested. So fair is fair, right? Now,
wow, it's so nice that Cenk is being fair. They put in all the caveats in there.
Having said all that, yeah, no, the framing of that was atrocious,
terrible.
So he's like, well, I mean, if she respects you, obviously you don't have to beat her. On the other hand, if she doesn't, I mean, you picked the wrong woman, and I guess you're gonna have to do what you, I mean, it was just horrific. Horrific.
Yeah.
And so, is there an audience for that in the right wing? I mean, I say kind of half sarcastically, but like, but if you're in the right wing and you like that kind of talk,
not good.
What kind of talk exactly? See, the thing is that us here in the right wing, we know what he's trying to say. Andrew Klavan is saying if the woman puts her hands on her husband first, like if you have a wife that's constantly hitting you and putting her hands on you in a bad way, he's talking about, well, the husband's gonna have to defend himself. See, I understand that, and I think the rest of the right-wing audience could watch that and understand what he's trying to say there. But of course, Cenk Uygur, Mr. Oh, I'm trying to be fair, right? Look, I'm trying to be fair. You know, I'm not gonna give him a benefit of a doubt, but I'm trying to be fair, okay, right? Has to pretend like he doesn't understand that.
Okay, I mean, you can't really ask half the country, in this case, literally, because it's women, hey, you know what? Like, if you don't respect us, obviously we're gonna beat the crap out of you. You okay with that? No one's okay with that.
Now look, if you're engaging in a tender embrace and then it kind of evolves into some aggressive wrestling, but it's intimate, that's okay.
That's a different thing,
That's
Casper.
okay.
It's a different thing. Okay.
But anyway, let's watch a bit more from Friday's episode of the Andrew Klavan Show.
A lot of the women who wind up in the hospital because they were beaten by their boyfriends or husbands threw the first punch. I don't have the exact figures, but it's a substantial number of women who got in a fight with their husbands or their boyfriends and they threw a punch, the husband punched them back, and the woman is in the hospital. If you watch movies in which girls beat up men and win sword fights and things like that, you think, well, why would that be? But that's what happens. A woman punches a man, her hand breaks, and if he gets angry and he doesn't restrain himself, he's gonna punch her back. That's the law of the jungle. Now, if you're a person like me who loves women and wants to have a wonderful life with a wonderful woman and respect her and never raise a hard hand against her, I never raise my voice to my wife because I'm so enamored of her, you have to find that woman. You have to find a woman who doesn't need to be smacked around in order to behave in a civilized way. And that's the way you do it. You avoid the women who don't respect you.
Okay, no one needs to be smacked around. I think no one needs to be smacked around, okay? If your partner is attempting to hurt you, is being disrespectful, if you're in a toxic relationship or marriage, you have to walk away. All right, if someone is posing a threat to you physically, yeah, you do need to defend yourself. But the idea that someone needs to be beaten is ridiculous. It's like that wording is awful, atrocious. I can't believe that he said that, but.
I mean, look at the.
I do agree the wording wasn't great. But my thing is that we both know he wasn't sitting there advocating for wife abuse. He wasn't sitting there saying, yes, if she steps on a line, listen, if you get home and your dinner's a little burnt, you gotta treat that as a sign of disrespect, and therefore you gotta do what you gotta do to keep her in line. Like he wasn't saying that. Even in the clip they played, they give the context where it's saying if she puts her hands on him first, if she strikes first, and she is constantly striking first, that's what he is talking about.
So the thing I object to the most is the mindset, right? So he says, in a lot of cases, very substantial, the woman throws the first punch. You made that up. Do women throw the first punch from time to time? Of course, it's humanity, right? Do I know if the number is 2% or 20%? No, I have no idea, neither does he. But his mindset is like, well, sometimes they got it coming, right?
It's the law of the jungle.
So he's saying Andrew Klavan made it up, but then he's saying he doesn't know the number himself. So how does he know Andrew is making that up? If Cenk doesn't know the actual answer, then how can he say definitively Andrew just made that up?
Cenk, the law of the jungle.
Exactly.
Have you ever watched the movies with the women with the sword fights? And I don't know why I brought that up, but it's the law of the jungle.
No, what he's saying is you're seeing in culture that women are as physically capable as men, but they aren't. And so if they try to smack us around, they're gonna have another thing coming to them. But that's not an epidemic in the country. It happens, but it's not an epidemic, okay? So, but even more important than that, when he said, find the woman who doesn't need to be smacked around, that thought would never occur to me in that way of saying it, right? In that sentence. Because I don't think any woman needs to be smacked around, and it wouldn't even pop into my mind, right? But in his mind, that is a category of women. Women who need to be smacked around.
Yeah.
That's why you should avoid those and find one that respects you. And by respect, if he was a normal person and not saying these things, I might say, oh yeah, okay, of course you should have mutual respect. But it seems to me, based on the rest of the context, by respect, he means you do what I tell you. And if you don't do what I tell you, then you're in the category of women who need to be smacked around.
Klaven also isn't really doing himself many favors when he applauds self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate, who's been charged with rape, human trafficking, and sexually exploiting women for saying this type of stuff out loud. So take a look.
If a woman respects her husband, obviously her husband should treat her like the queen of the world. But if a woman hits her husband, he should never hit her back, but he will. She will learn what it's like to live with somebody who's bigger, meaner, tougher, stronger than she is. That's the law of the jungle. It's not right. It's not good. The guy should be arrested, but it will happen. That is the way things work. And that's why Andrew Tate has some kind of panache with young people, because he says this out loud and nobody ever says it out loud. That doesn't create a responsibility in you to beat your wife. It creates a responsibility in you to find a woman who will respect you so you can treat her as she deserves to be treated.
I said, not doing yourself any favors.
But Andrew Klavan even says right there, this is not an excuse to beat your wife. This is a message that you should go find someone that won't put their hands on you like that, which is a pretty reasonable message. And he only brings up Andrew Tate, not to tout him, not to praise Andrew Tate, but he brings up Andrew Tate is that the reason why Andrew Tate gets a lot of followers is because Andrew Tate isn't afraid to speak some of these things out loud. And that's why Andrew Tate gets the audience that he does. However, no one here on the right, at least hardly anyone here on the right, likes Andrew Tate. And he is actually is a bad influence. He is not a conservative. He doesn't preach conservative values. As Anna stated, he is being charged on all of these horrific things. We do not want people listening to Andrew Tate. We want people to listen to actual conservatives. But when you have the Young Turks over here calling people like Andrew Klavan essentially wife beaters, or they're advocating for wife beating because they're saying a simple message, which is to find a woman who doesn't basically mistreat you or lay her hands on you willy-nilly whenever she gets mad at you, then you're going to make reasonable conservatives like Andrew Klavan or others afraid to say these things out loud. But then you're going to have the Andrew Tates who aren't afraid to say these things out loud. People are going to gravitate to him. Well, what do you guys think about this so far? Sound off in the comment section below. Smash that like button if you're enjoying this video. Let's continue.
Tate as someone worthy of admiration, as someone worthy of listening to for advice on relationships.
And even like more than that, saying like, oh, Andrew Tate says stuff like, I don't even know if Andrew Tate does say that, but he says Andrew Tate says smack your women around, but that's got panache. I don't think it has panache. And so number two, look, the Daily Wire is an interesting cat. Because it's like, its economic policies are super establishment. Tax cuts for the rich, corporations are great, they're your friend, don't worry about it. And I would say, and not but, and they love starting culture wars.
Oh, that's like their number one thing.
Yeah.
100%.
And so they, oh yeah, let's have this nonsense conversation about what kind of woman deserves to be smacked around. Why are we having this conversation?
Why? That's a great point. Why? Like why? Why was this a segment? Like why did this come up?
And so,
is there a big national debate about beating wives right now?
Yeah, look, we're trying to be super fair, and a lot of folks are really mad at us for being fair.
No, we're mad at you because you are not being super fair. You're not being charitable. You are taking the worst interpretation of what Andrew Klavan is saying, and you're saying that's what he's saying, that Andrew Klavan is saying that you should go and beat your wife. He is not saying that. He has never said that, and I think you know that, Cenk. But you have an agenda, and you have an audience to cater to. So of course you're going to take the least charitable interpretation of it as you could. That's why people are getting upset at you. You are not being fair at all.
And say, I don't think he represents all right-wingers. And I don't know, he certainly doesn't represent all 77 million people who voted for Donald Trump. They didn't vote for Donald Trump to beat their wives, right? So does he represent some portion? Yeah, there's a portion that likes Andrew Tate, that likes this kind of stuff. And and there's radicals, no question, in the right wing as there are in the left wing. And the radical right wing is often more dangerous, in my opinion. Okay, so now at the same time, I want you guys, if you're in the right wing and you don't like that kind of talk, understand that culture wars go both ways. Identity politics goes both ways. And especially if you're looking to support the establishment, you don't want people talking about tax cuts for the rich. That polls 76% of Americans say, don't do tax cuts for the rich, increase taxes on the rich. So how do you distract them? You talk about how wife beating has a certain panache. And then we all get into that debate and angry, etc. So if you're on the right and you hate identity politics, you should also hate this and self-regulate. You see us self-regulating and taking a ton of heat for it, right? So is that going to happen on the right? And do people have the courage to do that on the right and go, that brother doesn't represent me at all? That's crazy, that's radical right, and I don't want any piece of it.
That closing statement by Cenk Uygur was some of the most stupidest things I have ever heard. Even by Cenk Uygur's standards. Cenk Uygur is a complete dunderhead buffoon. There's a reason why this guy gets made fun of a lot. I know Anna wasn't innocent in all this either. She was in there piling on as well. So I'm not letting her off the hook, but she at least tries to be charitable. She at least in the beginning says, I don't think that's what he meant. And then Cenk Uygur's like, oh no, I'm not going to be charitable. I'm just going to lay in. I will say this, Andrew Klavan did not word it the best. I will agree with them on that. It did come off as silly. Even when I heard it, I was taken aback by it. But I know what he was trying to say. We do live in a culture where a lot of women do feel like it's okay to start physical fights with men. I've seen a lot of videos online where a woman will get up in the face of a man, push him, slap him, punch him, and then usually the man either walks away or the man punches her and knocks her down. And when he talks about the law of the land, here's the thing. There are some things that men don't even say to each other. That if a man were to say to another man, that's what they're called fighting words. Like, you just dealt me a low blow. Now we have to fight about this or get physical. Like, you went too far and now we got to fight. Those are usually the laws of the land. That's just how men are. And if a man were getting up in the face of another man like that and slapping him or pushing him or whatever, it's going to end up in a fight. But women don't understand that, and they think they could do whatever they want. So Andrew Klavan is not saying that a man should beat up a woman, but he is saying that sometimes that's going to happen if you have a woman acting like that. Because again, if it were two men, that's exactly how it would go down. But you always have these lefties like Cenk Uygur and other, like the Majority Report was talking about it too, that always have to take these right-wingers out of context and make them sound like they're saying the worst thing possible. And so then we have to come out and defend it, and then they shoot back saying, I can't believe you're defending domestic abuse. It's like, I am not defending domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is horrible. But when you are making it sound like they are saying something they didn't say, yes, we have to defend that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Cenk Uygur himself. Cenk Uygur went on Turning Point USA. He is trying to do this thing where he's trying to reach out to MAGA and understand MAGA. And he's been answering to the left because of it, because the left are all pissed at him over it. But Cenk, what are you trying to do? Okay, you have to pick a lane. If you're going to be the stupid lefty, then stick to being the stupid lefty. But if you're trying to be the moderate lefty or the understandable, reasonable person that's trying to reach out to MAGA and be charitable, you are doing a terrible freaking job at it. You're doing a horrible job because it shows that you still have this bias toward right-wingers and MAGA. You still have this disdain toward them. And that's why people are calling you a grifter, that you're just using MAGA and right-wingers to try to save yourself, essentially, or try to get whatever your agenda that you want in there. But you can't say that you're trying to reach out to MAGA and you're trying to be fair and reasonable when you make videos like this. Pick a lane. Either be a stupid lefty or be the reasonable, understandable one that's trying to reach out. Pick one. But if you're going to be the understanding, fair one, you can't make videos like this. I don't know what Anna Kasparian is still doing there. She is the only good thing about the Young Turks nowadays. I think she could do much better on her own, because then she won't be involved in crap like this. And I think she is genuinely on a redemption arc, where Cenk here is trying to portray himself as being on a redemption arc, but he is full of crap. But what do you guys think about all this? Do you think Cenk should pick a lane? Do you think he's a grifter? Or do you think he was totally correct on this whole Andrew Klavan thing? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy content like this. And if you do enjoy content like this, I got a whole bunch more videos of Cenk Uygur making an ass out of himself on the screen for you to binge on.